Everyone has their opinions when it comes to the Socceroos at the World Cup. A few days ago, we put out the call asking for your Socceroos hot takes. What were your opinions, your big takeaways from Australia's performance at this year's tournament? We've picked out some of the best ones to discuss here today and would love to get your thoughts and reactions on some of these hot takes in the comment section. And if you are keen to see more Socceroos content like this on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button to let me know. Jumping straight into it, the first one reads, we should move on from the older players now or after the Asian Cup 2027 and rebuild for the next World Cup qualifiers cycle. It also reads here, if we exit early in the Asian Cup, we should move on from Tony Popovic, maybe Milligan and Muscat or foreign coaches. With that first point there, I can understand where this comes from, because I've seen this comment a little bit in regards to some of the older players in the World Cup squad, but I think that's because we're also excited about this young generation coming through. You know, these young players like Lucas Harrington, Chikati, Irankunda, Volpato, all these guys are so young, teenagers, early 20s. We've got this next generation of players coming through who we really do view as sort of could be Socceroos stars for the next decade or so. I do still think that a lot of those older experienced players still have a lot to offer, at least for the next few years. Those players in their 30s who are in the World Cup squad for Australia, the likes of Aziz Bayic, Jackson Irvine, Matt Leckie, Matthew Ryan. I think all those guys could certainly feature at next year's Asian Cup. Of course, it's just 6 months away. I think Matty Ryan especially still has many years ahead of him in the Socceroos squad. So, yeah, I do still think those older players still have a lot to offer, a lot of value to provide the squad. And that next point as well, there is a lot of pressure, I think, on Popovic to really perform here for Australia at the Asian Cups. We should be heading into that tournament with the expectation to really go on a strong run. I really think we should be aiming for the final. There's no reason why we can't be there at the end. I think semi-finals is the absolute minimum. But with the quality that we have, and we showed we can match it with some of the top teams in the world at the World Cup. So I think we should be heading into the Asian Cup as one of the favourites, in my opinion, and hopefully we pick up some a good run of form and show some good performances in the friendly games leading up to it as well. But yeah, man, really looking forward to the Asian Cup next year. And yeah, if we don't perform, if it is an early exit indeed, I think that may well be the end for Tony Popovic in charge of the Socceroos. And look, you mentioned here Milligan, Muscat. Would love to see both those guys get a run at the Socceroos head coach position. I think Kevin Muscat, probably the next one in line. He's had a great few years coaching in China, so I would like to see him given an opportunity with the Socceroos. Next up, a simple one here. At least 10 players will be in the top 5 leagues by 2028. And this sort of goes back to what we were saying a moment ago about these exciting young players that we have developing. Just recently, we've seen Paul Ocon-Engsler secure a contract in the top flight of Germany. Lucas Harrington, we've been talking about him a lot lately. Some huge links for Lucas Harrington, been linked with some of the biggest clubs in world football. Not just that, Chikati linked with some Premier League clubs. Obviously, he's already playing in the top flight in Italy. So many players could be on the move with the likes of Pat Beach, Nestor Irankunda could be playing at an even higher level as well. So many players here. And as you say here, at least 10. There's still so many young players that weren't even in this World Cup squad that could certainly be playing at a top 5 league by 2028. So, look, whether it'll be 10, that would be huge to see at least 10 players in there. We've only got like a handful at the moment, but if we can get to 10, that would be awesome. I think it is doable. I think if a lot of these young guys have really good seasons this upcoming campaign as well, I think we could maybe get around 10 players in the top 5 leagues. I feel like that is realistic. All right, next up. Here we go. We've got a few ones here. So the first one here reads, Toure underperformed in his limited time he got on the field. It is interesting. I don't think we saw Toure at his best in this tournament. I think he still has such a good future for the Socceroos. He started that game against Turkey. I thought he was good in that game. Made some really good attacking runs, held up the ball well, and he started against USA. Came off at halftime. Everyone struggled in that first half against USA, really, for Australia. And we didn't see him at all against Paraguay. Came off the bench against Egypt, but Australia, we had to do a lot of defending there against Egypt in the second half and in extra time. So Toure just didn't really get the chance to show his best attacking abilities. I don't think it's necessarily his fault though. The next one reads, we missed an experienced big target man like Duke. I do agree with that. My opinion before the tournament is that I think we should have seen Duke in the squad, and that's still my opinion now as well. The next point reads, Popper has us extremely solid defensively, but but playing very dull and uninspiring football. Look, it is solid defensively, and with Popovic, when he first came in with the Socceroos, we went on a fantastic run of all those clean sheets and rarely conceding goals. And the defensive record has been good overall, and I guess in an attacking sense, it can be pretty quiet. So I can understand the dull, uninspiring feelings in regards to the way the Socceroos play at the moment. Perhaps we can play a bit more of an expansive brand of football in the future. And the final point reads here, I think based on our overall World Cup performance this time around, we've not really taken a big step forward since the 2022 World Cup. That's an interesting one. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments about that. How would you compare the results, the performances at both World Cups? It is tricky to compare because the squads were so different. Obviously, different head coach, different formation, different expectations maybe heading into this tournament. I probably agree. I don't feel like we've taken a massive step. Again, eliminated in that first stage of the knockout rounds. Look, we took it to extra time. We took Egypt all the way to the penalty shootout, unfortunately being eliminated in the end. But I think at least we've now changed people's expectations a little bit. We've qualified for the knockout stage at 2 consecutive World Cups, now 3 times total. So I think heading into future World Cups, Australia will be expected to really be pushing for the knockout rounds, and we have to go further next time around now, surely. Next up, I'd say pre-tournament expectations, it's par, but after a winnable Egypt knockout game and the result, especially with some very questionable decisions from Popper, it's below par and leaves some concerns he's the right man for the Asian Cup. It also reads here, we need to offer more on attack and be more than just a difficult team to break down. That starts with putting Aaron Kunda in his natural position, not as a central striker. Yeah, look, I think that win against Turkey really sort of like raised the bar for our expectations, you know what I mean? Like, I think that Turkey game, we were all expecting to maybe be the toughest game of the group stage. And look, it was difficult, but the Socceroos really admirably took on that game and came away with a 2-0 win. So, look, if you told us that we were getting that result before the World Cup, I would have been stoked. And that certainly is the highlight of this tournament, obviously, for Australia. But yeah, it is funny. Like, after the journey has now come to an end for Australia, we're sort of feeling disappointed that we didn't achieve more. I think that comes down to, again, or as you sort of say here, maybe some of those questionable coaching decisions. Popovic choosing to put Aaron Kunda as that central striker. We just didn't see his best abilities utilised. He played on the left-hand side against Turkey and was much more effective there. He scored the goal there. And playing on the left, or, as one of those number 10s, he's able to get a little bit more involved in the play. There were crosses coming in when he was playing as a striker. And obviously, his aerial ability isn't his biggest strength in Aaron Kunda. We want him on the ball. We want him taking on players. And I just don't think playing as a striker, it didn't work. It didn't work against Paraguay, and it didn't work against Egypt. Again, I think against Egypt, it would have been good to see him play in that wide position for sure. So yeah, possibly we are feeling a little bit frustrated that we weren't able to maybe achieve our full potential in the end. But hey, we're excited for future World Cups. I think we can now raise that expectation, raise those bars. Ooh, an interesting one here. Marcus Yunus and Eli Adams would have been very handy to this campaign. Pace and precision, players who can finish. When Aaron Kunda is knackered, Yunus can come on, and it's a shame Nesri was playing as a striker though, so again, we get another comment about that. Adams is a brilliant finisher. I think we lacked that. Yeah, look, our attackers in most games just, again, didn't really get too much of an opportunity to show the best of their abilities. That Paraguay game, we did sort of get a lot of opportunities, but unfortunately just didn't have the quality. So, look, maybe someone like a Yunus or an Adams would have been good. I can understand Popovic including the likes of, in those sorts of positions, Leckie and Velupale, because those guys have Socceroos experience. It would have been enormous pressure on Yunus or Adams if they were thrown straight into the Socceroos setup for the World Cup. Look, I understand it with someone like Christian Volpato, given his just quality, and he's already playing at such a high level. And look, I'm sure Yunus and Adams will certainly be in Socceroos conversations in the future. Would have been interesting, though, to see them in this World Cup squad for Australia. Ocon Jr. silenced any criticism about nepotism. If Popovic was as flexible about his formations as he is his selections, he would have gone further. It also reads here, FIFA's head-to-head rule change really stuffed with our group. I prefer goal difference. Yeah, I don't know about you guys. I think I prefer the goal difference personally. Look, Ocon Engstler was fantastic, absolutely fantastic this World Cup. Again, we were very surprised to see him start that first group stage game. game ahead of Jackson Irvine, but he absolutely showed his quality in that game and in the game against USA as well. Paul Ocon-Engsler, he's got a fantastic Socceroos career ahead of him. And again, he got another comment sort of talking about Popovic and maybe his formation and his selections. We are feeling, I think, a little bit frustrated that maybe some of those could have looked a little bit differently. And it's not just, again, like we've already seen a couple of comments sort of hinting at it, and it's not just like a few opinions here and there. I'm seeing comments, feelings from everyone, feeling that, again, we maybe should have seen some different calls in regards to team selection and tactics maybe for the Socceroos at this tournament. Next up, outsider perspective here. Okay, this is interesting. Outsider perspective, you guys have good players, just need a coach that will take those guys and empower them. It's time to go into matches trying to actually win instead of just surviving. Yeah, and look, I think that's where we have to progress next. I think that certainly is where we need to look to develop. And with this exciting generation of players coming through, especially these talented attacking players and some fantastic midfield players who can really get themselves on the ball and control the game and dictate the flow of the game, I think we are capable now in future years of really taking games on here and not just being a team that sits back and relies on our solid defensive shape, but really goes through it and causes some trouble for sides moving forward. So yeah, I feel that way as well. Next up, it reads here, we could have beat Paraguay and Egypt and drew to USA if Mo Toure played as a striker and Iran Kunda played on the left wing cam. Not really that much of a hot take. And again, we're talking about it here. This is not an anomaly, folks. This is a common opinion. Everybody, myself included, we wanted to see Iran Kunda play on the left-hand side where, again, he was effective against Turkey. And it's hard to justify why he was playing as a striker because there was no evidence in his game time in this World Cup playing as a central striker to justify that decision. That's the thing. Like I get it. Like if Popovic moved Iran Kunda there, and maybe he would have, if he grabbed a couple goals and was a little bit more effective, causing a bit more of a headache for defenders, then it would have been a justified move. And Popovic did make some big calls that did work out in the end. Pat Beach coming in, huge call, worked out. Paul Ocon-Engsler, I think, was a great call for that Turkey game as well. But it's just there's no evidence to suggest that Iran Kunda was effective playing as that striker compared to out on the left wing, where again he probably gets more time on the ball, more chance to take on players, maybe get into some more wide areas as well. So. I wouldn't go as far to say that I reckon we would have beaten all those teams there, but I think we would have proved much more of an attacking threat in those matches. An interesting one here as well. I've seen this mentioned a few times. Jordi Boss is way more dangerous on the right. And I think people are saying that because he was Australia's best player by far against Paraguay, and he was playing on that right-hand side, right wing back. And it's great to now have Jordi Boss, we've sort of got the option now to play him on that right-hand side if need be. But look, I still think he's going to be Australia's left wing back / left back moving forward. I think he's still dangerous from that position. He's already scored a few goals playing from that left wing back position for Australia. But look, certainly an interesting conversation. Obviously, coming on that right side, he's able to cut in on his favoured left boot, and he's a fantastic finisher, Jordi Boss. So, look, maybe there is a conversation there, but great to have that versatility now for Jordi Boss. Next comment reads, Velupile, Bajic, Lecky, Degenek, Geria, Hrustic, and Yengi will never play for the Socceroos again because of age and performance. I mean, that is a hot take. I definitely think we can see a bunch of those guys play for the Socceroos again moving forward. Look, maybe for some of those guys, this was their last World Cup for Australia. Obviously, you've got still got some young players in those players that have been mentioned here. Velupile still has a big future ahead of him, of course, as well. Hrustic, I think he could certainly feature in the next World Cup for Australia. Yengi as well. Excited to see what Tete Yengi does for the Socceroos moving forward. Would love to see him given more of an opportunity. So look, it is an interesting one, given that some of those players, again, maybe played their last World Cup here for Australia. So an interesting one, a very interesting one indeed. I think those players still have a lot to offer, in my opinion. Next comment reads, I think Graham Arnold's team and footballing style performed better in the 2022 World Cup than Popovic in the 2026 World Cup. Yeah, I mean, again, it's tricky to compare. I don't know if I would fully agree with that. I wouldn't go as far to say that 2022 we were better than this World Cup. I think against Turkey, we were exceptional, just defensively so good and dangerous going forward. Against Paraguay, we looked good. And against Egypt, we showed some really good signs as well. And I guess we can say the similar things about our 2022 performance. Again, we had to do a lot of defending in all those games and were effective going forward and scored some great goals. It feels like they're sort of on par with each other. It does feel difficult to compare, that's for sure. All right, the Socceroos should play like Newcastle Jets did in the last A-League season, which was attacking, entertaining football. That would be cool to see. And Jets played with a 4-3-3 formation with head coach Mark Milligan, and we talked about him briefly. Maybe he could be a future Socceroos coach and maybe play a really exciting 4-3-3 formation. That could be fun to watch indeed. It certainly could. And Newcastle Jets were obviously a very entertaining team in this last A-League season, winning the Premiership. The last one that we will take a look at here. Future looks great. Lots of great young talent unearthed. Would like a video of future talent we should look out for, e.g. James Overy, Boss's brother, Liam Chipperfield. We'll definitely have to put a video about that together on the channel. And I guess not necessarily a hot take. I think we all agree with this. The future does look great for the Socceroos, with so many of these young players performing at this World Cup, and this is just the beginning of their journeys for Australia. So really excited about this next generation of young players coming through, and that has to be the positive that we really do take away from this tournament. I mean, how good was Pat Beach? How good was Paul Okonexla? Chakati at the back. Lucas Harrington, he was so impressive in those two performances for him at this World Cup as well. So many other players to talk about. But there are positives to take away from this tournament for the Socceroos. We'd love to get your thoughts and reactions on some of these hot takes in the comment section. And again, hit the like button on the video if you want to see more Socceroos content like this on the channel. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. My name's Lockie. See you in the next one.